Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another round of Aussie V8 racing. I'm your commentator, Johan Carinas, and you're watching the Sim Experience YouTube channel. Now, we're still waiting for everyone to get started with qualifying. So I'm just going to wait for everyone to get out on track. Please let me know if the audio is okay. I had to do a complete CPU swap this week and unfortunately lost a lot of things in relation to that. So if the cars are too loud or if you can't really hear me that well, please just let me know. I can easily adjust here from my side. So just a quick look at the current standings. Last week we saw Dennis Mitchell clinching a victory in one of the races. That sent him to the top of the standings. He's then followed by Donnie van Rooyen, who's kind of just hanging on to second place there at the moment. I can't recall exactly where he placed, but he has been consistent, so there's definitely that. Then Timo Smit also coming back in the standings in terms of points. I still think he might have stayed in third at the moment. Yeah, he has stayed in third, but he definitely has closed the gap a bit. Then Dylan Versaghi, position 4, Melvin Goos, position 5, Mornay Deploy, still hanging there in position 6. Then Sean Webber, position 7, Peter Geldenhuis, 8, Peter Grobler, 9. I don't know why these Peters keep sticking together, but they stick together on track as well. Then we've got Ian Upton in 10, Rowan Bauer, Alistair, who we've seen kind of feature in a few races before. Then Craig Wesley 13, Sean Johnson, Mitchell Rust, sorry, James Leach, Marius van Wyk, Rian van der Westhuizen, Dani Stander, Gavi Gous, Herman Nieuwoud, Jason Craig, and Skalk Versaghi. So it's definitely looking good. I'm just going to quickly look at the stats for the sessions that are in progress at the moment. I just want to see what our current weather is, because unfortunately we have had a bit of difficulty getting all of the video work done in time. As I said, it's been a very busy week, but it's going to be for the better of the stream. You'll notice that you're now getting the stream in full HD, so no more performance issues. And if we have, my wife is going to be very upset with me, so yeah. Where am I going to find this now? Sorry that I'm not as prepared as I should be. The guys are still busy with their outlaps on the circuit, so we're still in good form, and I'll get around to the shoutouts in a bit. Okay, no, that page is not going to load at the moment. So, in terms of weather, let's just say it looks good. And these guys will have to manage. I will maybe come back to it once I get the page loaded. Then, this is also a bit of an interesting track. So, when I searched for it on the internet, basically, it's now called the Sydney Motorsport Park. So in 2012 it changed name, and then it actually exists from the 1990s, so a little bit older than I am. And then they had a redesign in the mid 2000s, which is kind of given everything its current form. The redesign was done by an A1 Grand Prix circuit designer, and while I was scrolling through the results, I saw in one of the A1 Grand Prix championships, we actually have Adrian Zoug, a South African driver, 2007-2008, those results are for. So Van Rooyen coming into the books with a 130.299, so that's looking quite solid for Donnie Van Rooyen. going to the YouTube chat, we've got Gideon Jonker saying let's go, and thank you for helping me confirm that the audio is actually working correctly. And then Skulk Vasagi also says it sounds good, so yeah, thanks guys. Right, we've got times rolling in now. So Dennis Mitchell, 1:30.26, very close to Van Rooyen's 32.99. So those two are quite close together, which is going to make for some great racing. Timo Smith coming in third. He still has 6/10 to kind of find around the track. We have seen that he does struggle a bit if the track isn't as suited to his driving style. And he has been struggling with a bit of the winding circuits of tracks like Oran Park. This does seem to be a lot more open. Firstly, it just looks like the straights are longer than Oran Park, but it might just be that he hasn't really had that much practice yet, and he's still getting used to the car bit. Then Sean Weber, now sitting in the fourth. The next driver, or the first driver on the list that we've got in the 130s, other than the three front runners. On the YouTube chat, we've got Nico Smith saying, Kom Melvin, steek hom. For those of you that are English speaking, is basically just an Afrikaans way of saying just put your foot in it, or how we would normally say, just let's go. Tommy Larry Moss, let's go SRAC. I can't remember exactly what that stands for. I think that might be the team name. I'll have to go check. But yeah, unfortunately we're having some sound issues on the track, which is a bit odd. Oh, SRAC is actually a whole group of race teams. So we go and look. Yeah, we've got SRAC GP, and then we've got SRAC Electrical, and SRAC Tau Energy. So quite a few of them around here. And I'm just going to go through the list. The first SRAC driver that I can see is Melvin Goos. So if I can just get my remote controls up, we'll see that it's this gentleman right here. So he drives for SRAC, SRAC GP, mind you. And then we've got Sean Weber. Kind of just jumping back to him again, but he is in SRAC Electrical, and then Peter Geldenhuis. Okay, we'll jump back to Sean Weber, but Peter Geldenhuis that jumped to the pits there. He's SRAC GP, and then Craig Wesley. Where are you? So this gentleman right here is going to be SRAC Tau Energy. So yeah, quite a few of them out there. And I need to just quickly... Okay, so Tommy Leary was saying that that's Sim Race Africa crew. So, oh, that's the guys from Sim Race Africa. That's quite cool. So yeah, he's saying Melvin Goos, Sean Weber, Mitchell Rust, and Craig Wesley. And then Gideon Jonker, shout out to Mornay Deploy. He invited me to this Discord server. We came across on the R Factors 2 server. Yeah, so that's... If you know Mornay Deploy, you'll know that he's a big R Factor fan. And we'll see, he's kind of chomping at the bit to get me racing in that, but I first need to just get the commentating stuff up to standard. And then I see also someone that missed, Nico Smith saying, go Mr. Rust, give it a stick. See, that's the English version of stekel. So that's a good way of saying it. And then I'm just seeing a lot of names. I see Herman Livout to the SRAC guys saying that they are watching you. So I'm not sure whether that's... I'm assuming Tommy Leary Moss might be one of the team bosses. I I don't really know them that well. But yeah, they might be keeping an eye on one another. Right, then coming back to qualifying for a bit, not too many guys on the board. Oh well, there's just, I think, 3 more drivers that still need to set the time. I maybe just need to... apologies, I just quickly need to send Mornay a message. Yeah, so Mornay is just also helping out with a few of the video editing things for tonight. So I think that might be, he might just be sorting out a few things for us while he's sitting in the pits. Okay, so Dennis Mitchell looking very solid on a 132.60. So Donny van Rooyen not able to top that yet. I'm just going to jump to someone else. So let's go to Mitchell Rust, running the Boost livery, the one that you can actually see featured in the trailer video that we've got. And then around the back, so a fair amount of guys in the 130s, but not too much movement from there. So I'm actually going to see what this track looks like, because I'm really curious to see what these guys do around this track. So let's take Dennis Mitchell and go on board with him. We'll just quickly orientate ourselves around the track as he goes around it. So as you can see, also blue and white curves, similar to the track that we ran last week, Phillips Island. Some of you might remember issues with the Shaders patch where those curves were actually disappearing. Right, down the main straight into the first corner, heavy braking. That's going to be a very good overtaking opportunity if you can get your exit done well. Then you can see nursing the throttle, being very careful not to overstep the grip of the rear tires, and a very heavy right-hander turn. This is also going to be a good opportunity for overtakes, especially if someone ruins or messes up their exit. Fast right-hander into a very difficult braking zone. So this is going to be very rhythm-based, and will entirely depend on how easy you can manage your rhythm. Then important, get a good exit here. You'll want to have that for the straight, otherwise you're going to get picked off. And then again, managing your throttle, not braking too much, keeping up your minimum apex speed, and just carrying as much speed as you can. Again, a bit of a heavy braking zone, just rolling through the corner, making sure that the platform of your car stays flat. So this would actually explain why Timo Smith is struggling a bit, because this is the kind of driving, this undulating and a style of kind of shifting your weight continuously from one end to to another. That's something that he's not as good with. I think for him this kind of rhythm-based driving is a bit more difficult than just nailing your braking zones and kind of focusing on one turn at a time. Here it's very much about compromising between corners and keeping up that momentum, because you can enter with all the speed in the world, but if you've slowed down to almost nothing by the apex, that's not going to help you. And the track does seem quite narrow in these cars. So speaking about that, let's go see how Timo is doing. So I'm going to jump aboard with him, and unfortunately this is putting him on the spot a bit, but I really want to see how he's doing on this track. So currently up on his delta, that's actually a good thing, 1/10 up. We'll see very aggressive braking, using the engine a bit as well. That's carrying, yeah, he's definitely carrying as much speed as he can. Gaining some time on his delta, that's looking good, 2/10 up, losing a bit of speed at the end of the straight. That might just be that he doesn't have as much confidence in this corner. Here you can see, carrying a bit more speed up the hill. Very aggressive turn in. You need to be careful that you don't break the grip of your front tires and understeer if you're going to drive like that. And you can see that's probably the one section of the track that he's struggling with because he's lost a ton of time. So unsettling the car has cost him a lot of confidence, and if you can't really predict what the car is going to do, that's going to make driving very difficult. But he's once again up on his delta, so 3/10. He probably had a very poor exit in his previous time lap. And that's going to be a very good improvement for him. He still has 120 tenths to find, but I do think, based on what we've seen before, if he can get that one corner nailed, he's going to be able to challenge Dani van der Rooyen. So still 8.5 minutes left. I do think Timo Smith definitely has an opportunity to make an improvement there. As we're saying that, he has gone up in his delta, and I'm just going to see if there's a different set of cameras. If you're not hearing the cars, that's not me muting them. That is a set of cars are having a bit of trouble. There we go. So up 3/10. This is where he struggled before, and you can see that exit has cost him, but he is still up on the delta. It's looking good to overtake Van der Rooyen if he can keep up the speed, and unfortunately I think he just lost confidence there. So we'll see. The slower cars making sure that they stay out of the way if they're not on a fast lap. This is going to be very close, but unfortunately I don't think he's going to have quite enough oomph. You can see very close to Van der Rooyen, but not exactly where he wants to be. But I do think Timo is getting used to the track as it is. I'm going to leave him alone for now. Looking down the back, we actually have Mornay driving. So, well, he was driving. Craig Wesley. So we've not looked at you before. So as he starts off with the time lap, unfortunately had a bit of a rough lap before. But let's see. Of course, not as much speed going into the first corner due to the poor exit on the previous corner. But he's still within a tenth of his previous time and does really well there in the braking zone. So he's also carrying the speed through the corner. It might feel slow, but I think it's definitely helping him to just kind of get used to the transfer of weight of the car. Very fast into the braking zone. That's a pretty hot entry into the corner, but he's been able to carry that speed. So that's puts him 4 tenths up. That can put him ahead of Deploy if, well, unfortunately he dropped back a bit. So 3/10 with these less experienced drivers, is going to be, you'll see that the laps aren't as consistent all over as they would normally be. But that's also quite nice if you do start nailing that part of the track and you suddenly have half a second to a full second in hand. You can see the tires of Wesley's car kind of slipping a bit, but a slight bit of oversteer is okay. Ludicrous amounts of oversteer is not. It's now going to all depend on the exit. Does he have the speed? And unfortunately, I think he's beaten through here a bit faster on his time lap. So unfortunately not able to make the jump on Deploy. So Dennis Mitchell still very comfortable in first. And actually improving on his time there. So he's now sitting at 130.126. And I would imagine Van der Rooyen would be coming out to challenge that. So unfortunately, not a good lap for Van Rijn at the moment, but we'll leave him at it. Sean Webber actually finding some traffic on the track, so I'm not sure. This might ruin his next lap as well. And this is always difficult. I mean, all of the drivers have full rights to use the track for a fast lap. It's only if you're doing a slow out lap or end lap that you really want to be careful with what you do. And unfortunately, lose this. So one of the cars forced off. I think that might have been not Maurice van Beek, definitely not Brian van Westhuizen. No, I think I might have lost it. Someone else that we have not seen so much of today, I think we found the driver that was being forced off track, Melvin Goos, having a bit of a difficult time with getting in a solid lap. So Timo Smit on an out lap. Sean Webber, unfortunately not on a fast lap at the moment. Both he and Dylan seem to have run into some action on the track itself. So Alistair also having a bit of trouble with his current timed lap. Harvey or Melvin Goos still sitting out on the track. I think he might be having some issues with equipment. Craig Wesley still working at it. Rand van der Westhuizen. Also on an out lap, Mitchell Rust. It was actually a driver I was looking for before. Not on a fast lap. We'll see what his times look like going through here, but let's see. Seems to have had some decent straight line speed. Actually up on his delta at the moment with a 10th. So improving a bit on his braking zone, but not carrying the speed as much. And then improving on his exit, so he's still a bit irregular on this or through these S's. I think we'll leave him to it. Dennis Mitchell again up on his delta. He's definitely trying to make sure that he's got that first place, and we'll see coming out with the S's whether he has some time in hand. The one thing of note of this performance delta is that you kind of want to keep an eye on what the delta is once the driver gets into a straight, because otherwise you really just want to keep an eye on how the delta is changing throughout the corner. And unfortunately Mitchell losing stability of his car's platform through the corner. Van Rijn running very deep, and that's cost him a chunk of time. Timo Smit also not up in his delta at the moment. Sean Webber coming into the pits. Let's see, Dylan Versaghi. He's got a whole world of opportunity. Yeah. So yeah, if a driver suddenly gains a bit of performance on his delta in the end of a corner, you can normally say he's braking later, and you'll also see if a driver's got a lot more speed through the apex of a corner, you'll see the delta improving through there. And it all depends on how the driver wants to approach the corner. They might be entering the corner at a very high speed, but it might be that corner just runs into a series of other corners, and you might not be able to carry all of the speed. So then slowing down quite harshly might be a good way of getting past an opponent. And if you really want to maintain speed through the corner, for example like this one, you actually don't want to slow down your car that much. You just want to slow down to the point where you're able to make the turn and not past that. So then it might be advantageous to just brake a bit early, get your car settled, and then get that turn on the corner going. Just going to jump back to Van Rijn. Still no answer to Dennis Mitchell's pace, and uh, going to start getting the final laps in right about now. So unfortunately, unless Donny found a lot of pace, we're going to have Dennis on pole, running through. Timo Smith, 2 tenths down. I'll leave him for now. Alistair B, 6th, still not up on his delta. Mornay having a bit of a rough lap there. So Timo abandoning the lap there. So we'll just wait for everyone to kind of get into the pits. Just a few people still finishing up. So Van Rooyen, I'm not exactly sure. He might have just sneaked past the line while I was looking away, but he still seems to have a lap that he can do. Not sure whether that would have counted. But I'll jump us to some advertisements, and then I'll be back with you shortly. Hey everyone. So I apologize, my Assetto Corsa crashed, but we're off. You have only missed 20 seconds of the action. So Dennis Mitchell leading into the starts and unfortunately going off track and falling back quite a few positions. Leading now, we've got Donny van Rooyen followed by Timo Smit and then Dylan Versace and Alistair trading positions. So Alistair actually fighting quite close to the start of the pack. That's quite interesting. Then looking around, Mornay Deploy back into 6th position. I don't think he qualified there, but he's definitely working his way into the rest of the pack. And Timo Smith making sure that he stays close to Donny van Rooyen. Timo will be really pushing for a win right here. And we'll see what he's able to do. Then further down the pack, Alistair securing 3rd position, so he'll be very happy with that. Followed by Dean Fasaki. Then I see also some action happening back here with Peter Galmeis and Sean Webber. You see a whole string of cars coming down the straight. Mornay actually coming under pressure here, so we've got Dennis Mitchell overtaking him here. So Mitchell really falling back in the pack. But there's still a lot to race for at the moment. Then just looking back to the front of the pack, so Timo Smith making sure he doesn't lose contact with race leader Donny van Rooyen. And then Alistair making sure he stays in 3rd. I'm just going to jump back to Mitchell once I get my... There we go. Mitchell all over the backside of Melvin Close. I know Melvin has some people shouting for him. Bosnane Gaming shouting for him there. Definitely be battling quite hard. Looking around the inside, just making sure that he keeps in touch with Ghost. So Mitchell's just making sure he keeps up the pressure. Up in front, we can actually see Timo Smith also getting very close to Donny van Rooyen, and they're going to head down the straight. Timo losing a bit of pace. I think Van Rooyen might have a better exit through there. Still in the 131s, and Timo Smith doing the fastest lap of the race right there. So it's definitely clawing in the time. Alistair also keeping up with Timo, so really performing well. I think he's put in a lot of practice if he's running with the front runners and keeping up with them. So well done there. And back in the pack, Peter Galmeis and Sean Webber also very close. So we'll see, is this going to be a bit of a switchback, or and I think that might just be a bit too much pace to manage for Peter Galmeis. Then Dennis Mitchell in a battle here with Dylan Versace. Apologies, I just want to get the camera sorted again. Sorry, not Versace, but Mitchell and Melvin Close. But they do seem to have settled down for a bit. He's also closing in on Melvin Close here. Going down the straight, he's going to have a very nice piece or a nice drop, and behind him we've got Sean Webber. So Melvin darting to the inside, but that is a bit far back, and actually loses the position there to Sean Webber. So you can see how much of an impact the draft really has here. Mitchell or Melvin Ghost leading this pack of cars, and I see a bit of a gap opening up in front of him. So he's definitely paying a bit more attention to the cars behind him. So Sean Weber looking for opportunity of a switchback here, and unfortunately Goos just closes the door, and I think Mornay's steering wheel just completely buggered out there. So unfortunately that's taken him out, so equipment failure. Melvin Goos running wide, costing him time. He's losing the position to Sean Weber, and now has to fight back. Up in front, there's also some action, but for now we're going to stay here. Goos still all over the backside of Weber, and Weber now pulling off to the right hand side. I'm wondering if that's a similar issue to what Mornay had, or if that's actually some server issues where some of the packets get stuck. But that has provided a good opportunity for Melvin Goos. Timo Smit still staying in touch with Van Rooyen, and Alistair staying about second behind him. So these three out in front, very comfortable with where they currently are. Timo running a bit deep, but not losing too much time when you look at his delta, and still keeping that gap under a second. So he's staying in touch with Van Rooyen in front of him, making sure that Van Rooyen just doesn't drive off into the sunset. So Alistair also closing down the gap a bit. So it seems to change based on on different parts of the track. So it's going to be interesting to see whether these drivers can pick up where their opponent is weaker, and where they can basically then nail on the attack, and also pick up where they're losing time and where they need to defend. We also saw some discussions happening on the server, on the Discord server ahead of this, about whether it's useful to use tools such as Crew Chief or Helicorsa for awareness of the cars around you. And that's where Crew Chief actually does become quite useful, because you can use the voice commands to ask him like you would a normal race engineer. Listen, where am I slower? Where do I need to defend? And where should I attack? And that will definitely give you a lot of information based on what you're seeing on track, and also, of course, the feedback that you're getting from your pit crew. So that is definitely a good way of utilizing that piece of software, and it also makes it useful for knowing when cars are coming at you from behind at speed, or when they're trying to overtake you when they're on different sides of you. So at the start of the race, it's also quite useful. Timo Smit now losing touch with Van Rooyen in front of him, so Van Rooyen opening up more than a second's worth of gap between him and Timo. And then Alistair, he's still staying in touch with Timo, so these three are doing really well to keep together. And then I think someone that's on a bit of a drive back, James Leach, I think he might have also had a bit of an equipment failure. So up the inside of Rian Torres as he goes. Both drivers leaving each other a lot of space, driving very respectfully to one another. So that's always nice to see. I must say the Formula One left me a bit frustrated, and it felt like I've seen better driving standards in sim racing, and that does pose a bit of a question. As you can see, these drivers just running so close to one another. James Leach able to make the pass, but now losing time by going off track. I do think Leandro Vesa is just going to try and stick within the gap. Dennis Mitchell is now back into the fray, so he's running in fourth, and Dylan Versace right behind him. So yeah, that's the thing. It makes it an important question about how aggressive do you drive. Are you going to drive so aggressively that you kind of get into situations where you're going to be forced off track by another driver, or you're going to force another driver off? And how fair is that? Normally around the sim racing community, you'll see a lot of people saying you always leave the space. Um, and it's a bit of a self-preservation thing. If you're not going to leave the space for another driver to make the move, you risk ruining your own race, and you totally rely on that other driver backing out of the corner. So you can bully people, and this is kind of a driving style that Charles Leclerc has adopted. It's very aggressive, but you also see it landing him up in a lot of trouble. I'm not a big fan of him just because he's so aggressive with his racing. And you'll see people like Max Verstappen actually backing out of corners, and you would have seen him do that in Bahrain last year, where he unfortunately got taken out by Leclerc and another driver. So in sim racing, it's also important that you keep this in mind, and you always need to understand that we're not F1 drivers. So that might be just why I tend to be on the more cautious side. But you do need to be very cautious, because it's so easy for someone to make a mistake and ruin the race of two different drivers. But that all started because two of the drivers here were driving very respectfully, so definitely not the problem here. I think the issue here might be more equipment related. So thankfully, a lot of drivers very dedicated to the series they're racing, and also very mindful of the other drivers around them as well. So while I've been going off on a tangent, Alistair's unfortunately dropped back a bit, and I'm not exactly sure what might have happened, but I do think without the draft from Timo Smith, he's now finding it difficult to kind of generate that speed through the corners, and might be that he's struggling with the exits of certain corners where he doesn't have that draft to kind of pull him along. Further down the pack, unfortunately Alistair going off there, so he's lost a bit of confidence. That's the best way that I can explain it. And with a track like this that depends so much on feel, it's a really difficult thing. But for now, I think he probably just needs to get his head down, get in a few decent laps, and then build his confidence from there again. So Dylan Versace is now also putting pressure on him, which is going to complicate things a bit. He doesn't really have that space to clear his head and then get back into the swing of things. So we'll see how he manages the. And Dylan Versace has also kind of been a constant in the front, I think 6 drivers of this race. So Alistair going wide again. Versace giving him the space, not taking an opportunistic overtake, but rather just focusing on getting it on merit and not getting in a possible accident. And down the front, so we'll try and see where these two drivers gain time over one another. For now, this corner does seem to be quite a weakness for Alistair, so he's running very wide, and you can see the back end of that car is very lively. And unfortunately, as I say that, Versace gets a bit of a tank slap and unfortunately loses it, and is now stuck in the middle of the track. So Malcolm Ghost doing well to avoid him. And I think the next driver is well off, although approaching at a very fast pace, which will be Peter Geldenhuys, who's also going to put a lot of pressure on him. I also got a bit of a peek at the track temperatures, and the track temperature is fairly cool. It's 30 degrees Celsius, so it's not going to be shredding the tires as much as a warmer track would, and the ambient temperature is also fairly cool, 26 degrees Celsius. So normally your ambient temperature will be more important for cars like your open cockpits, where you've got forced air running in your radiators. So that will all affect your engine cooling, but of course these cars can struggle with warmer conditions, but that's not going to be the case here. And then the track temperatures are of course going to relate to your tire degradation, and that's normally the one that we pay attention to quite a bit. Timo Smith's also catching up with Van Rijn at the moment, so we'll keep an eye on these two. But tire degradation, even though it's rough on these two vehicles, on these vehicles, it's not going to be as rough as it has been in the series, or as it can be, given that this is Australia. So Smith doing very well to catch up with Van Rijn there. It might be that the tires are starting to drop off a bit. I don't know how lucky Timo might have been there, but driving on the gravel, there is a recipe for spinning off. So he's done well to maintain control of his car. Looking at the standings, we can see Alistair B is also still doing well to kind of stay in touch with the front of the pack. He's maybe regained a bit of confidence, but he's not picked up the pace that's closed the gap between himself and someone like Timo Smith. Just going to quickly jump if I can in time. So around from the rest days, and still having a bit of a scrap here with James Leach. James Leach on the inside, both drivers, I don't know, there might have been a bit of contact there. And that seems to be a bit of a lag spike in the server that might have caused that contact to actually take place, even though the drivers were trying to avoid it. So Timo Smith now losing a bit of time to Van Rijn, but still staying under the second gap. And it does seem that there are certain portions where he has the capacity to attack, but he's just not kept close enough for that to actually be an opportunity. You can see Timo Smith taking a very wide entry for that corner, trying to increase the time that he's able to accelerate for the exit of that corner, but it's difficult to do with such a large sweeping corner. You can see he's also struggling with the platform of his car, kind of with the weight transferring back and forth. It can be very easy to slip into a tank slapper. But he's done well to keep control of his car and still keep up with Van Rijn. But this does seem to be a tough battle. If Van Rijn makes a mistake, it's going to cost him the position, but if he can keep up his consistency, he'll definitely be outperforming Timo Smith in this race. Further down the pack, someone that we've not really kept an eye on that much is our resident video editor, Mornay Deploy. So he's kind of sitting on his own at the moment, with no one to see around him, but he's been doing well. He's still kept up close to the position where he was at the front of the at the start of the race. So you remember him being in 6th position. I also see the time has caught up with us. Dylan Versaghi trying to make use of the last portion of this race. It's 30 seconds left plus a lap, and it's all going to depend on when the race leader crosses the start-finish line. So Versaghi is very aware that he needs to make a move right now. Malvin goes very aware that he needs to defend very hard at the moment. You can see a huge amount of oversteer. I'm really glad we caught that on stream, but that's going to cost him a lot of time going out of the corner. So side by side, Malvin Goes and Dylan Versaghi, and Versaghi just slotting in behind Goes. So not really highly confident that he's able to make the pass. So leaders on the final lap. And we've got these gentlemen chasing behind as well. So I'm torn between changing to Timo Smith. So I'll just quickly jump to Timo Smith to see what he's up to. So this is for the lead. They're still within a half a second of one another. And on the final lap right now. So yeah, Versage and Ghost still kind of in their orientation at the moment, or in their order at the moment. And then Smith's aware that he's got less than a lap left to make this move stick. You can see he's trying to go around the outside, but can't really find the space. They've got a back marker coming up in front of them. I think that's around for the rest station. You can see the car's actually slipping and sliding a bit as they just lean into these corners. There's a lot of car to shift around. So down the start, oh sorry, I got excited a bit prematurely. Down the start finish straight they go. I do think this is going to be the position for first and second. Then jumping further behind, Versage losing a bit of touch with Melvin Ghost. So unfortunately that fight ended as soon as we switched away from it. Then Peter Gelnes following behind the Versage. In the background there, Mornay just coming in the position we last saw him. Craig Wesley still has a bit of a way to go. Also running completely on his own. Seems to be having a fairly good time. Further behind him, we've got Mitchell Rust. Can kind of hear the cars in the background. So that's going to be Craig Wesley across the line. And in the background, we can see Mitchell Rust. And then also coming across, we've got James Leach in position 11. Marius van Wyk still coming around, position 12. And then Rian van der Westhuizen, position 13. Now, I think Sean Webber might have taken his car in for repairs. So he's going to be in position 14. So race order is going to be Donnie van Rooyen, Timo Smith, Dennis Mitchell, Alistair B, Melvin Ghost, Dylan Versage, and then Peter Geldenhuis, Mornay Deploy, Craig Wesley, Mitchell Rust, James Leach, Marius van Wyk, Rian van der Westhuizen, and Sean Webber. I'm going to jump to advertisements and I'll see you guys in a bit for race 2. It's going to be reverse grid. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So again, apologies for missing the start of the race. I've had a bit of issues with my my key bindings for jumping to the pits, and that's with the whole new CPU setup. And unfortunately, that means that I was at the front of the grid and had no way of removing myself from it. So unfortunately, that would have ended very badly. So going into the race as is, we've got Mitchell Rust, Morris van Wyk, Craig Wesley, and Morris unfortunately dropping down the order a bit, realizing that these guys are just a bit too fast for him and he'd rather just back off to a comfortable pace and have a safe race. So Mitchell Rust leading there is one of the SRAC cars, if I remember correctly. Then following him is Mornay Deploy with a second gap, and then Mornay under pressure from Craig Wesley, unfortunately went off. So Mornay under pressure from Alistair, who's under pressure from Versage and Mitchell and Van Wyk. So a lot of stuff happening with the cars as they round off the first lap. So comfortably in front is going to be Mitchell Rust, and you can see Alistair starting to look for opportunities to get past Mornay. And we'll see whether Alistair is able to make the move somewhere. So Mornay making that car as wide as possible and giving Alistair a bit of reason to slow down and see where is this this driver's weak points. Mornay unfortunately losing a bit of balance with the car, running wide through the corner, completely off track. So aware that he could have taken out the driver there, and that's going to give the position to Alistair. Some nice awareness from Mornay there as well, even though he had lost the position. Further back, Dylan Versage on the back end of Mornay now, and looking on the inside, now outside, sorry. Unfortunately not going to find the opportunity for that, and Dennis Mitchell is going to say thank you very much, and not really putting a line beside him, but putting Versage in a very difficult position. Behind him, Timo Smith, a man hungry for points at the moment. Remember, he's fighting for a championship lead, and he's going to be competing with gentlemen such as Dennis Mitchell and Donnie van Rooyen. So top three runners in the championship are going to be this man right here, Mitchell, as he makes the move on Versage. Not completely making the move stick, but he's got the inside for the corner, so that's going to give him a very great opportunity there, and he's past Versage. Alistair taking the lead from Mitchell Rust as well, while we're talking down here. So Alistair looking good to run away with this. Mornay still fighting for third, looking at Mitchell Rust. So Mitchell has lost a bit of confidence, and Dennis Mitchell, not to be confused with Mitchell Rust, so I'll probably just go over the surnames at the moment. So Rust in a very difficult position as all of the cars are basically just creating a bit of a sandwich here. I'll jump to Timo Smith. So Timo is still following closely behind Versage, very eager to pick up a position where he can. You can see him sticking into the inside of the corner a bit more, but not carrying as much speed through it as he can. Off in the distance we see Alistair Deploy following as close as he possibly can, and then Dennis Mitchell now fighting for a position here with Mornay. So Mornay's got a whole bunch of drivers chasing him, looking for an opportunity to get past. So Mitchell looking for opportunity on the inside, realizing that there's not enough of a braking zone to really make a move, and just tucks in behind for the next series of corners. There's quite some heavy braking, but as we see the fronts of the cars slamming into the ground. Up the inside we see Mitchell, but he's not going to, although he does have the pace as Deploy runs off track, kind of bewildered with the sheer amount of cars around him. So Versage almost through wide into the corner, tucking on the inside. He's now stuck on the outside, and Mornay will be able to defend this, but it all depends on who's going to have the exit speed. And Mornay not carrying as much speed as he wants to. Timo Smith going around on the inside. Mornay running wide. So lots of shifting happening here. Unfortunately, we see someone there that looks like Melvin Goos stepping out the rear. He's been drifting before. I think it was he was in the YouTube chat saying the back end of the car was very, very loose. So just reorientating myself a bit here again. Gaps now opening up between most of the drivers, but Goos under pressure from Van Rooyen. So Van Rooyen really wants to get into some solid points here, but still has a lot of drivers to clear. And then off in the distance, you can see Mornay Deploy also again with a whole bunch of cars around him. So if you want to know where all of the cars on the track are, just look at where Mornay Deploy is in the standings, and you'll be more than likely to find them. I'm not sure why that's happening, but unfortunately he's finding all of the action on track. So looking, yeah, it's Melvin Goos that was struggling with a lot with the rear grip of his car. So closest on the track, I'm just going to quickly jump to James Leach. Unfortunately, he was close, but lost it a bit. So Van Rooyen very close to the back end of Goos. And we'll see whether they're able to link up a few corners. Unfortunately, Melvin Goos running wide, not entirely confident with his car's cornering capabilities, and it might just be that he was carrying a bit too much speed. Apologies. Running side by side down the main straight, you can see Van Rooyen struggling with the drop, but getting on the inside of the corner just in time to get the position. So Melvin Goos now under pressure from Sean Webber. Sean looking on the inside, forcing Melvin Goos to defend. But definitely feeling the pressure from Sean Webber. Webber looking for opportunity to score some solid points. He's had a really rough race with damage to his car. So he's really going to be chomping at the bit. Further down the back, some action between Craig Wesley and Dylan Versace as well. Quickly jump to that. So you can see Versace does have quite a bit of pace in the hand, but he doesn't have the overtaking spots, and we'll see how much exit speed he's going to be able to carry through the next corner. Running a bit wide, so clearly held up with the car in front of him, but that's also the tricky bit of making sure that you stay behind the car far enough that you don't get held up at the point where you can't overtake. As I say, that Deploy and Webber having a nice little battle down the main straight we go. So Mornay Deploy overtaking Melvin Goos, but not entirely making the move stick, so they're very close to one another. Very fortunate not to make contact there. We've got Deploy, Goos and Webber all in the mix, running side by side. So Deploy has the inside line. Now Webber also in a position where he's got a bit of an inside line, and now back to the outside. So they've fallen behind a bit and are trying to focus on the corners a bit more now, but lots of action at the start of the lap. So this is where Deploy needs to be careful. He's been very cautious of an oversteer. One huge drift there from Melvin Goos. Unfortunately, that is going to take him out of that battle. Um, also a very, very nice drift there from Deploy. Was able to finish that. He should have put that on a little bit of a show reel. So we were taking the position from him fairly comfortably with that loss of speed. And Deploy will be fighting for that position. Up in front, we've not really paid much attention to these guys. So Alistair running 2 seconds ahead of the rest of the cars in the race. And the next gentleman is going to be Dennis Mitchell, who has Alistair in his sights, but is not close enough that he can really start mounting an attack. But Mitchell will also be very careful to make sure that he gets some points out of this. I need to remind you that Dennis Mitchell is, when we started this evening, he was the front runner in terms of the points. We know Donny van Rooyen, who's in second, has won the first race. So Mitchell is going to be well aware that he needs to get some points on van Rooyen here, and he also needs to be careful. Timo Spit behind him is also running third in the championship points, so he's also going to look for an opportunity to get a leg up on Mitchell on this evening. Jumping back, so unfortunately Melvin finding him close to all of the cars on track. He's been able to keep up with Sean Webber, which is good news. And he might try and fight for that position. We can see he does have parts of the track where he gets very close to Webber. And we'll see how that affects him. So Deploy actually moving up in the standings. I think he wasn't in fifth when we last left him. Or I think that might have been with Ghost dropping back in the standings where Mornay might have gotten a bit of a boost in his position. So Sean Webber putting the pressure on Mornay, but also in the process of that getting held up and coming under pressure from Ghost. So he needs to start making a move stick, otherwise he's going to be the one defending himself. Further on the standings, this seems to be the closest battle on track, except for James Leach and Peter Gelner is also having a bit of a battle there at the back of the pack. All the drivers taking some different lines to varying results, and unfortunately that's Ghost running completely wide of the track. That's going to be understeer, and again equipment failure for Sean Webber. I'm not exactly sure what's just pulling his steering wheel 90 degrees to the right, but that is odd indeed. So the player going to be very happy with that. He's now up in clean air. But we know that he's also had similar issues in the first race, so he might also have a bit of a risk of an equipment failure right here. So Alistair getting passed by Dennis Mitchell. I'm sorry we missed that, but Dennis Mitchell now up into the lead of the race, and by some comfortable margin. I think Alistair might have had a bit of a mistake through one of the corners. So this is going to be very, very good for Dennis's standings in the championship. Then Alistair is still clinging on to position, but you can see Timo is also starting to close the gap to Alistair a bit. If he can get a second position here, it's going to be very good for him. You can see the cars are within viewing distance, so he knows that he's within a feasible distance. He just needs to get his foot down, and currently you can see he's having a bit of confidence issues with the car, running up on his delta, as you can see there, almost a second slower on that lap. So Timo a bit careful at the moment. I'm going to jump to Melvin Goos here. So Goos has caught up with the backside of the Ploy. And we'll see these drivers fighting again. They were fighting a bit earlier, challenging one another. So you can see Goos running a much smoother line than the Ploy. And that's going to affect how he's able to carry that speed. He's within 4/10 now. And this is a part of the track where it's all about maintaining that speed throughout the corner and making sure that you're ready for accelerating out of that exit. So Goos just keeping that gap, managing that gap, just staying in touch with the Ploy and making sure that you can spot the weaknesses and start acting on them. Just quickly looking at the YouTube chat. So we've got Langley Matt saying nice going Dennis, and then some messages from earlier when Melvin was in between the different races. If you're on the YouTube channel, please feel free to say hi. If you've got a driver that you're supporting, let us know. It's always nice to see the family members, the friends of drivers supporting them. I think a man that's in dire need of some support right now is Deploy, as he can feel the pressure there from Goos. Goos desperately wanting to make up for his earlier mistake, and he wants that position back. Up ahead, I'm just looking at the timing screen, we also can see Timo Smith catching up with Alistair, so Alistair also going to be under pressure right now. I'll keep a bit of an eye on that delta to just see how they progress. But for now, it still seems to be looking a bit tame. We've got 2 minutes left, so if you want to make a move, you're going to have to make it now. And I think Timo is also going to know that he now needs to start working hard on getting past Alistair. We'll have a bit of a look at those two. So Timo is still within a second, so Alistair is definitely doing very well to keep him at bay. And we'll see what we can do for you here. So we'll just quickly see how Timo Smith is closing the gap. And as I say that, Alistair starts opening up a gap. So Timo doing, Timo Smith making use of a fairly early apex, opting to rather have a bit more acceleration out of the corner. Under 3/10. Onto a bit of a straight. So we've got a fairly heavy braking zone at the end of this, and then a whole sequence of corners. Timo, unfortunately, he's done well to avoid him there, but I think he might have just had a bit of a snap oversteer there. So unfortunately, that's taken Timo Smith out of the running. And Daniel van Rijn also passing him. We're going to see a situation where Morné Deploy overtakes him. Maybe not enough of a gap. So Timo Smith now fighting for the position that he initially had with Van Rooyen. So this is going to unfortunately be a bit of a tough pill to swallow. 2 laps to go. Dennis Mitchell with a whole world between himself and Alistair, and then Van Rooyen Smith scrapping it out for 3rd position. So it's only 2 laps that Van Rooyen needs to defend from Timo here, but it's going to be crucial for the championship standings that he gets these points. and more importantly, that he makes sure that he takes them away from someone like Timo Smith, who can challenge him. And we'll keep an eye on these two. Alistair also running in what I would think is the highest position that he's been in a race before. So I'll see it, or I'll believe it when I see it, but he looks good at the moment. I won't say for what. So, Smith, just managing the gap between him and Van Rooyen, but not able to close it. And it is difficult to follow other cars on this track, not because of things like downforce, but just because it's really difficult to find a spot where you can actually utilize an advantage of speed over your opponent. Also note that the tires are going to let go, so that's going to start becoming a problem for drivers such as the Ploy and Ghost, who have had a bit of issues with oversteer on their cars during the race. So Deploy also now fighting for his position, and you can see struggling to just get a nice clean exit out of that corner. Ghost closing a bit of a gap, is going to the inside. Is that going to be enough? No. So Deploy getting 5th position by the breadth of a hair. He's going to be breathing a sigh of relief. So your race winner is going to be Dennis Mitchell with a well-deserved 1st place. And then behind him is going to be Alistair B, who's also going to be very, very happy with his 2nd position. I think it's his highest finish in this series thus far. Then we're going to, behind him, we've got Van Rooyen, Smith, Timo Smith, Deploy, Ghost, Versaghi, Weber unfortunately having a lot of trouble with his car during the race, his equipment rather. Then Wesley, Rust, Kalnaes, Van Wyk, Leach and Van der Westhuizen coming across the line. So I'm going to jump into Discord. I'm going to see if I can find the race winners for you, and then we'll quickly have a bit of a chat with them. So I'll be with you in a second. Hey everyone, so I'm back. With me in the Discord chat, I've got Donnie van Rooyen, our race winner from race 1, and then we've got Dennis Mitchell, the race winner from race 2. So Donnie, how was that first race for you? I saw you kind of just kept it nice and consistent from my perspective. How was that race for you?
No, I didn't keep it nice and close to Timo. I just didn't get any traction because my tires went off quickly in this race. I don't know if my setup is wrong on this Holden, but I need to do something because when there's 9 minutes past in the race and there's 11 minutes left, I already got no grip on the rear. So I was just trying to keep it straight and in the right direction.
Well, you're the one on track that kept it the straightest, seeing as where you finished. And I saw a bunch of guys having a bunch of issues with things like oversteer. If you go watch the race back later tonight, you'll see some amazing drifts on camera. Um, so I don't think you were the only one. It's a bit odd. I don't think I think the weight transfer on this track with how you're driving might have affected things. How was the kind of rhythmic nature of the track for you?
I love this track. In practice, I went well, and in qualifying, I just lost a little bit of my rhythm and I couldn't get it back. But I love this track because the direction changes. I think that's what's killing the tires. So I really like the way the track goes. If you push it, it's very nice.
Yeah, no, it definitely looked like a bunch of fun. Then race two, and I think this was also a very interesting race uh, with the front three finishes. So Dennis, you secured victory there, and how was it, how did you experience that race? I saw a few of the guys making some mistakes going off the track a few times, and I think that might have opened the door for guys like you to kind of charge through and secure that victory. How was that for you?
Yeah, I just picked up the pieces. I had to just keep it on the road. I just, for some reason, race one, I always go off in turn one. I just can't get the car to stop. But
Thanks,
race
Dennis.
two, the opposite. Everyone else goes off and I pick up the pieces.
Yeah, and we had Alistair in front of you. I think it's the highest that he's run before. So you've done really well to kind of put you in the position where you were able to capitalize on a mistake from him. Um, and
Yeah,
I think that
he hadn't got,
that might have
hadn't
been well
got a
for you.
chance of getting past him.
And then how was the pressure after that? Any big pressure, or were you just trying to keep it consistent and just try and keep those lap times up?
Yeah, the tires were pretty worn at the end, but the lap times were probably about just over a second slower for me, but I wasn't too sure how everyone else was doing. But then in the last two laps, I noticed Alistair started going further back, so I gathered his tires were worse.
Yeah, it might have been that he was overdriving his tires a bit, and I think it was a bit of a snap oversteer that he had or something like that. That kind of cost him the position. Um, but yeah, well done on the race. And then good luck to both of you for the preparations for next week in Townsville. So I'll just switch us over to the ads after the thank yous. So just a quick thank you to Alvin for sponsoring this. You'll see them coming up on the screen now. Thank you for everyone at Some Experience for also helping manage this league. And then you'll also see this the Skinny Media logo there. That's going to be Mornay Deploy, also for all of the wonderful video work that he's done. So thank you very much to all of you. Thank you for everyone in the YouTube chat. It's been really fun having you. And then, yeah, we'll see you next time at Townsville. Hope you have a good evening.